Hello and welcome to another episode of Awaken Dreaming. My name is Jess and this is
Utah Jazz.
and today we are going to be coming with you. We kind of sort of spoke about it just ever so slightly in the previous episode. If you missed that episode, go catch that now. Um Carry Me Home. Um you know, it's very punny. Um
Ba-dum-ts.
Um, but in this episode, we are going to be kind of continuing a little bit of what was in that episode, but it's not anywhere to some degree the same topic. We are going to be talking about astral projecting and our experiences with it and how it's kind of started where we're at. And I guess just kind of sharing because it is one of those things I think uh that you either know about or experienced about, or you're just like, what is that? What do you mean there's a whole nother world that's inside the world we're living in? Or it depends, I guess, on how you view it, or outside the world that we're viewing into. And it's funny, like in preparation for this episode, I just quickly looked up something and I was like, astral projecting your way out of COVID, and I was like, out of COVID lockdowns. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I never really thought about that." No wonder astral projection has been such a big topic in recent times, in COVID. I'm like, "Yeah, it makes sense," but, you know, also kinda dangerous in some ways as well, and then we'll get into some of those, dangers, I'm sure, over the episode as well. Um, but let's, I guess, dive into it.
I'll also want to mention a little bit of a stigma thing that you might encounter when growing up, because that's the funniest bit about astral projection. Like for me personally, is like the stuff you grow up hearing, or like the crazy movies you see, and you're like, oh, this is terrifying. I never want to go into it. Um, because there's definitely a thing of like I don't know how or what it comes across like to the youth, either in North America or like Australia or whatever. But here it was kinda like the stuff I heard when I was still in school about it was basically like that movie Insidious. Legit, like the movie Insidious, where a guy is basically helping from the other side to like get his boy back into his body. I don't know if you've seen that horror movie. Yeah, okay, there we go. That
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen it.
kind of terrifying movie. But also legit, that's what I heard. I heard a story about a woman reading about it, hearing that it's supposedly cool and whatever metaphysical trip. She did a salt line around her bed when she was going to sleep. She managed to get out of her body and she couldn't come back into the body. She just was floating at the ceiling, basically, stuck, trying to get back for about an hour or so. Obviously, kind of time works different, but her experience was an hour while hearing a bunch of creepy shit, and that's what I like. That those are the stories I grew up hearing about astral projection. So now that I'm like actually in the practice of it, I'm a bit like, oh, what a funny world we live
I
in
mean
with what
that's
it is.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say probably for me, the thing that I really heard about astral projection wasn't necessarily, I guess, what's kind of out there these days. It was more associated with like Native Americans, like native tribes people, and
Mm-hmm.
how they would astral project into certain areas to like help save people, or like get visions of things, and that type of thing is, I guess, probably how I viewed astral projection. It was um something that I didn't, probably even like into my early 20s, didn't really think as something normal people did. It was
I
always
mean,
like, "Oh,
yeah.
well, that's like that's the thing that the like medicine person, or like, the witch doctor, um they do those things." Uh Me being an average normal human being, even though at this point I'm having my dream experiences and had been for many years, that's like a different that's a different realm of it. Astral projection is over here on the other side.
Mm,
Like,
yeah.
not connected. So that's, I guess, probably my perception of it, and I don't know, I actually probably haven't had this conversation, with people that I kinda grew up with, if that was also their perception of it as well. I'm now actually intrigued to go speak to people and be like, "Hey, like, what was your perception of astral projection growing up?"
Yeah. Well, I think it's like a main little important and interesting detail because for me personally, as I said, that's what I grew up with. But in general, I, for some reason, had a bit of a paranormal youth from what I'm aware of now looking back. Um, and I heard this from a teacher, an English teacher of mine that was also into like some metaphysical things, but at the bare bones of it. Um, she told me about poltergeist and everything, and then after that, once I started researching everything on my own, astral projection got expanded on with conspiracy theories where, you know, there's like experiments made or done
Mhm.
so the capacity of like human consciousness can be explored, remote viewing for like spies,
Yep, yep,
just like the whole shebang. And that's where
yeah.
I started like realizing like, oh, okay, so astral projection isn't necessarily how you see it in the movie Insidious, where it's a whole dark dimension full of shadow people and the dead, that you don't want to get stuck into. I'm sure there's a place like that, but that's not necessarily it. And there might be more of a closeness or like you know a thing of interaction between the two. And then after that, it became this whole spiritual thing where a bunch of crazy crap can happen, and apparently you can also manifest or just experience insane stuff with whatever
Mhm.
undertone of seriousness that I can't comprehend, but whatever, let's call it in. And then that transition to basically the last year of me getting into it and it not being anything like what I've heard or researched. Mind you, I also know that I kind of came around into it from behind in a weird backwards way. Because I expected like this whole experience of like, you know, getting out of your body one night while you're trying to like go to sleep, seeing a bunch of fucking fairies around or aliens or whatever the fuck, or like charging through the cosmos and seeing your higher self and like having a nice handshake like pleased to meet you, how you doing, how's the weather up there, you know. But no, it wasn't like that. I've even the experiences I've had, well, like in a sleep state, don't really compare. And apparently there's a whole loophole thing of like if you start practicing it in the future, more likely than not you'll realize how you actually even did it when you were a kid. And it just has a bunch of mysterious stigma to it unless you get into, you know, spiritual communities where it's a bit more open or like understood a bit.
Agree, agree. And I think, uh, I guess it's really interesting how these days it is more accepted and more spoken about, because there have definitely been times within my own experience. And I mean, I spoke about this and I'll speak about it a bit later on in the episode, where people didn't believe that I was astral projecting. And then they've seen me do it. And then we're like, hang on a second, like, that I saw you do that, like, that's a real thing, and you're going through this experience, like, I can't believe that, like, what the fuck, like, that's crazy, whereas I feel like it is more accepted these days,
No, for sure.
and it but in saying that, because it is more accepted, there are also a lot of people that are going through it and are going to places and doing things that they shouldn't be doing.
Opening portals is the first thing that comes to my mind. Would be one, or just like traveling around being like, oh, willy nilly, this is fun and it's fine, and then you get like a bunch of
Mhm.
negative attention onto yourself and start feeling like shit, and it's like, why is this happening? Hmm.
Like, I feel like there's a bunch of, like, angry people around me that would harm me. Why is that? I don't know, maybe you burned down the Astro Village,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like,
Basically.
"This is fun."
Mm-hmm. Or why
Like,
is there a bunch of shadow people around me?
shadow people is an interesting one. Um and this, I don't know if anyone's experienced this, but like for me, there was a period of time where I was seeing shadow people on like a daily basis. I mean, I still kind of see them now, but like, um, and depending on how you view things, um, so I like used to work with Aboriginals, and one of their beliefs is that shadow people are actually spirits that have kind of gone off the beaten track. They've gone not necessarily bad, but they've just got stuck.
Mhm.
And so they've lost the light in them. Or someone has taken the light from them, like
Mhm.
another spirit. This is something that doesn't really get spoken. Another spirit has taken control of these spirits,
Yeah.
and I've seen both. I've seen both. Um, and not necessarily all shadow spirits are bad. Um, because there have definitely been ones that have warned me about particular things. So there's obviously some form of light somewhere in there or something going on for them, but they just appear as like they themselves are stuck, so they're shadows. Um, which is really interesting. I've seen like little kids, Aboriginal elders with like spears. That was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Driving along and I'm like, "What? What is that? What does that mean?"
Mhm.
Um, and and that particular one was a warning, and it's funny because I think it was probably 2 weeks after that, we got a really bad storm, and that was kinda and that area got really badly hit.
Yeah.
And it was like, "Oh, okay." That's what that's about. Um, they also signified for me, because I was working out in this Aboriginal community, when I started to see more of them, and this is something that if you do see them, that things were going on, like there was negative forces at play that were affecting other people, and it
Yeah.
actually started to affect the community, and people actually started to get sick, die, bad things started to happen randomly. Had clients telling me that poltergeist activity, all sorts of different things was picking up. Um, so sometimes we think it's separate to us, but it's actually a lot more connected.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most fun thing to me personally about it, but still I'm kind of getting I go through waves where I'm like excited about it because it's a new thing for me, but also then freak the fuck out because I'm like, what the fuck am I gonna goddamn see? I already saw crazy shit, and you'd like to say it's not there, but it is, and there is a connection between realms and worlds that has, an open channel or just like a system around it where one feeds into the other. Just in the general sense, if you look like at our planet, it's really interesting how wherever there is like paranormal activity, there's a map with it usually. Somehow it's connected or it's a timing thing, which is even more fucking weird and miraculous. Like, okay, reoccurring murders, that's one thing. Reoccurring weird paranormal stuff that supposedly is still argued to not be a real thing, that's a bit odd and weird otherwise. Um, and that is the other part of it that I think um, is easy either to like neglect or get over enthused about it is like, oh, this whole realm has this whole huge effect, whatever. If I get smart enough in it, or if I, become Neo in my own world, I can like fuck with this or like do this, that, and the other, or I'm just more aware, and that's really cool because then, can go to these places and experience these things or know that it's actually real and happening. But that's not really how you want to go around it. It's connected for a reason, and if you're a sensitive, you're also getting attuned to it for also a reason that has to be held with respect. Initiations are a real thing. Doesn't matter how many times you've been a witch or a shaman or this, that, and the other. You're still going to need to go through the process every single lifetime to get certified to even have any awareness where you can play around with this stuff, and sometimes you won't really even want to. Like, it's nice to know there's a bunch of like friendly fairies that love you because like, so you did something in a past life or whatever. But it's another thing going through the desert and being like, there's a creepy screaming monster out there that I am terrified to actually experience, regardless if they're real or not. And I'm worried, like there's that spectrum there.
Yeah, and it's when you're, I guess, going through your initial stage, and everyone's experience is very different. Um, when you're going through that process of actually awakening to these other worlds, it's very easy to go either to everything is really terrifying and get the fuck out of here, or everything is amazing and great and it's not going to hurt me.
Mhm.
Um, and I can do whatever I like because it's a like imaginary world. Um, and it's interesting. Like for me, I remember, and this is gonna be kind of funny because Yuta hasn't heard this story here. But when I was a kid,
Story time.
I when I was a kid, I watched a movie. I can't even remember what the movie. I think it was like a Christmas movie or something. And in the movie, they had this Candyland where everything was candy, and the kids got to run around and play. And in this cartoon, the kids like went to sleep and they went to Candyland, right? And they got to have all the candy and do everything without the adults telling them to not do whatever the hell I'm like, oh my god, this world is great. Like I want to go to this world. So I remember as a kid kind of like being like, I want to find this world. Like how like maybe if I close my eyes and I like think about it, I'll be able to get to this world. Um and so it's funnily I actually tried to without even knowing what the hell I was doing, I was trying to astral project into I don't even know if Candyland exists, right?
Mhm.
If anyone knows, let me know because I never got there. But um
I'll have an answer for that. Remind me.
I'm pretty sure it exists, but I could be
Mhm.
wrong. Um but I tried to find it. Like I was like I want to find it. But what did happen when I did close my eyes is I I got to, and some people will experience this. I got to a place where there was a tunnel, an everlasting tunnel. Now, my theory is that this is the tunnel that we come down to.
Hey, hold up. Let me just control alt delete myself back to the booting screen and boot myself the other way out. Just because
Now,
like I want to go to Candyland. Like, jeez.
what I will say is every time I got like closer to the end, I would get kicked and booted back into the body.
Good job, guides of
And I was
yours.
like, "Oh, what's at the and I like at that point then it wasn't about Candyland, it was then getting to the end of the tunnel. Like, what's at the end of the tunnel? And then, of course, I was still young, and then I heard all this, like, light at the end of the tunnel, and I was like, "Well, I mean, it's kind of a weird tunnel, but yeah, there seems to be a light." I'm like, "Is
it's
that
the
the same thing that I'm" No, surely not, like, that can't be, like, what I'm experiencing.
Yeah, it's debatable what we're talking about here. It's a complete open discussion. You guys don't know shit. I have a practical experiment going on. I'll find out the results and tell you.
I mean, and I was a child.
I know for a while.
I'm gonna say, guys, for anyone that's like, "Oh, well, that's a great way. I wanna go there and do it." I'm sorry, but it's not possible. 1, I don't know how the hell I got there and how I did that. And 2, I don't recommend it
Can you
at
imagine
all.
getting stuck in the doorway? Like something fucking glitches and you're stuck in the fucking doorway. That'd be horrible.
I mean, I used to be able to stay like, the thing is I could feel myself being pulled, like, while I was in this tunnel, I felt myself getting pulled back, right? Pulled
Hmm.
back in. But I was like, "No, I'm gonna make it. Get me through up there." And I would get ever so slightly closer, but the event of never actually get there. And then I think I got my key card taken away from me to access that.
Mhm. I would not be surprised.
um so so I guess like it's kind of funny like we're talking about it, but that was like my first experience of it. And no, it wasn't like the let's go to the fairy realm and do all this, or let's go to Candyland. Somehow I ended up in this, which is obviously that those of you, you know, if you do see that tunnel, don't go down the tunnel. Because I can't guarantee that that's what it was, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
I mean, I'd
Because I did
assume
get,
that's what it is, yeah. The only
it did
worst
very much
thing
get that
is like,
vibe that it was like a tunnel that everyone talks about, but
mhm.
kind of different.
I mean, worst case scenario, it's not that tunnel, it's a different tunnel that leads you to a different dimension. Which also
I
you
mean,
don't
that's
really know what the fuck that dimension was. What if you went to like Alice in Wonderland, right? Or
that
like
would
to
be
this
great.
to the Second World War, like you somehow fucking did a shortcut through like the time knife or whatever and ended at, you know, I don't fucking know, like some historical moment where you shouldn't be in your
Child me would have loved that, like, being a lover of, like, like, Narnia, Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, like, all these,
Mhm.
I guess, I would have been like, "Yeah," like, I did something cool, and then probably terrified 2 seconds later.
Your mind starts like comprehending the thing and you're like, "Oh fuck, no. Mom! Come get me."
"Mom, where are you?" "Mom? Mom?"
You look around like there's nothing. Where's the tunnel again?
"How do I get back?" Close eyes, try to think.
Yeah.
And then I actually saw, like, it's funny because I saw visual representations of this tunnel, which was a tunnel to another world in the movie that it was.
Mhm.
And I was like, is that what I've been doing? Like, is that uh,
That's
hmm.
maths. Whoops.
Still a child at this point too? And I was like, hmm. I'm
Your
like, well, I have no proof, and I couldn't get through there, so I guess it's a possibility, but we'll never
your guides don't get paid enough.
know.
Mm, like legit.
I'm just that child, like, how can I make this as difficult as possible for everyone? So that's
Mhm.
actually probably my first experience of it. And then of course I've had the dream side of things, which to me, like a lot of people do fit that within the astral projection world. But
Sorry, got interrupted. You continue on your thing.
but to me it is kind of slightly separate. It does fit into the same world, but it always feels different to me
Yeah.
than if I'm awake. Um, it I don't know. They're 2 very different experiences to me. Not to say that one is better or less than the other, they're just 2 different. Um, and
Well,
that's my personal take on it.
that's the odd thing about like all of this. One thing that was difficult to me was when I started like properly, you know, hanging out in the astral and doing all of these things and whatever with people or like just by myself is it has an umbrella term, right? But in all
Mm,
reality, you don't know which dimension you're going to or at, what level you're like at, or like what you're experiencing. And at the same time, there's like, for me personally, although this doesn't mean shit, there's like an experience that is either internal or more external with how I experience it, which
yeah,
doesn't tell me crap besides the point that it just complicates it even more so to where, like, what, you know, the whole vast variety of where I can go is within the astral. Because it's like interpersonal within me, but that doesn't mean it's not a whole world. It might be a doorway through a tunnel, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's like that, you know, tunnel that everyone goes through after they die. You know, I might open a door up, but it's not going to be like any of the ones from the freaking cartoons.
mm,
In general, it the only thing that I personally have found is that a lot of the depictions within either mythology or fairy tales or just, creative stuff in general from like years past or even currently right now, all of that is applicable or has a like reflection, but at the same time, there's no map for it. It's as varied
I
as
mean,
it
it
can be, and it's kind of different for every person on where they go. You
yeah.
know.
And that depends on where you're at. If you're more in the like world 3D realm type plane, things are going to be fairly normal, but with a twist on it.
Hmm.
Whereas if you go to another dimension, right, things can get kind of wacky and really interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, and that's where you get like the art style of the or like even people talking about this and their like experiences don't match up. And that's because they're in two different places. And you can kind of the easiest way for me to, I guess, uh put it into like for myself how I kind of explain it is like everything's laid over on top of each other or woven in together in between each other like a blanket. Um and you're just on different either planes of it or in different layers of the blanket in different parts of the weave.
Yeah.
Um, it all does gel together. Like even if you view it as a layer, they're all stuck together and as to one kind of thing, but you're just on different layers of that whatever that thing is you want to call it.
Yeah, I mean, the way I view it or wanted to mention as just a comparison, because this is like an example of if you're tripping with other people within the astral or having experiences, everyone's going to mention the same thing but completely different or from a completely different like perspective or explanation that fits in their head. So for me
Mm,
personally, it's not blankets or whatever. It's like if you could have let's say a blueprint of like a quantum brain that explodes. That's the way I view it. You have yourself that also obviously is also this big splash, but that big splash goes on into other like splashes from every little drop and kind of goes on and on and on. And there's different sides to it. If you look at it from a different, point, it's going to be different. If you look at it from a different point, it's going to be different. If you go down from the middle to any other different point, it's going to be fucking different. Still the same thing. Um, and there's references and whatever, and you only really get the amount you need for this lifetime. You also don't
mm,
need to be where another person is to necessarily, connect or like have a conversation with them or have whatever experience you need, even if you're not necessarily on the same level, because in general, also in spirituality, there's so many different things that like individuals go through, and it's just going to fall under the umbrella term of spirituality or metaphysical experiences, because let's say I work a lot with the astral or whatever, other people are going to work with the paranormal, you know
mm,
a third group of people is going to be like into plant medicines and shamanism and a bunch of stuff like that. And it's not just going to be a thing that they're practicing a whole new or different dimension from yours. It's just a case also that for them themselves, it's their experience with the frame or perspective that they need to. And if you don't get it, you don't get it. But that doesn't mean that doesn't exist. Like, I have spoken to many people about their alien experiences. I keep loving hearing about them, but I myself don't have shit to do with aliens besides trying to hire one at one point and it not working out because their scientists and medical staff are not up to par in terms of safety and confidentiality on what the fuck you're going through. So I don't personally like them, but every single time I have conversations with other people about it, it's still interesting to me. I still am on the same vibe. Same goes for people into paranormal stuff or whatever. My personal thing is always going to be like matrix manifestation and also other realms and how they interact with this realm, but for you it might be a completely different thing.
And I mean, that's it. You may take both perspectives and take it and kind of meld it into, or you might have something completely different. That's the way you view it. Whatever it is, you may have nothing as well, in relation to it. What I will say is though, this is, I guess, for those of you who are looking to get into astral projection, or or kind of develop that, or actually learn to control it if it's something that you've started and accidentally, on purpose. Um and what I will say is be careful with it.
Yeah,
Um it There are cases that it does affect people, and I'm not just saying, like, you hear about the cases where people can't get into the back to the body, and
they float like a balloon at the ceiling. Boop, boop, boop.
then they die in real world. I do think that that does happen.
Mm,
I'm a firm believer that that does exist. It does happen. Um, and the main reason being is that there have been, and there are still plenty of times where, for me, part of my astral projecting, and some people will say like, "Oh, you're just doing it wrong." No, I don't think that's the answer. I don't think this is it. There have been times where I haven't been able to control my astral projection. I've literally it feels like I'm getting yanked out, right?
mm,
And it's, or I'm yanking myself out. Um and for me, the conclusion and what I've realized from myself is that I'm doing stuff somewhere else. Like, I have agreements and contracts, or things that I need to do in other places. And in order for me to complete those things, I need to pretty much leave almost nothing of myself in this physical vessel. Which is not something, by the way, I recommend. I recommend, like, whenever, like, people talk about astral projection, they talk about fully leaving. I'm here to tell you that that doesn't happen. You always leave a percentage here because you need a percentage of the soul in order to stay in the body. Not only one, so then you can guide yourself back to yourself. Um, that's the first thing. Two, you need it so then the body still operates, so then it doesn't die. And three, so then nothing else enters the vessel. There's a soul, there's something there holding that space for you when
yeah,
you come back. Um, and so when I do this, quite often I'm pretty much fully out. Like, it'll pretty much look like I'm asleep.
yeah.
Like, she's totally gone. And this was when this was happening, and I've spoke about this in the last episode when it was first happening. I wasn't able to control it. It was terrifying. This is not an experience that I wish upon anyone, to be perfectly honest. And if it's something you are going through, feel free to reach out, because when I was looking up this stuff, and even still to this day, I don't see really anything of like, I'm leaving the body and I can't control it.
Yeah.
Um, that's not something that really gets spoken about in the whole astral projection community. But what would actually happen is when I was coming back in, I was physically forcing myself, like my physical body, forcing myself back into the body.
To a point of bruising.
And to the point of bruising, like, that's how forceful I was literally being. And I've, like, had, like, bruise marks on my
Yank!
arms and my
Just a
on my legs,
big blue
and
fucking.
I've, like, I've literally, my friends, my family members have seen it, and, like, there was a point where I was kinda like, "Oh, it's fine. I'm just a really, like, aggressive sleeper."
So aggressive you might punch your own eye out.
Um, but I was really forcing myself into my body, and a lot of people have said to me, "You're just entering wrong." And no, that's not the answer. The What my belief is around it, take it or leave it what it is that I was coming from a really, like, dimension in terms of the layers, quite high, and I was trying to come down really fast. I was trying to bring that energy from there down here into the body, and the body can't necessarily hold everything from all the different layers. And so I'm like shoving myself back into the body with whatever the hell it is that I feel I need to bring back down here.
Sorry, I'm just like shaking my head because you're stubborn. Like I'm not
And
conscious enough here. I need this dimension's awareness right here, right down there. We're gonna make it happen today. If not, I'll figure out something about how to make it happen
I mean,
indefinitely.
I don't think it's necessarily even bringing it into I it might be a little laziness of me being like, I don't wanna go through the layers and
Just let me like
de-escalate it.
do a fucking dunk and
Swan
a
dive.
swan
Yeah,
dive dunk into my fucking body, just like.
yeah.
I would not
Let me just
suggest
go.
doing what she does. Just FYI,
Don't do it. Don't
it,
do it.
it can be
Don't.
painful and dangerous.
It's very dangerous. It doesn't happen that much these days because I've learnt to control it and I've learnt to like particular things that I'm not going to get into because those things are like not for the general public. Uh, there are some things that we won't talk about here because some things shouldn't be shared because it's unsafe. I'll talk about the experiences, but I'm not gonna give you, unfortunately, those details. But I've woken up with like handprints and stuff. And when I do that, like when I wake up, if I these days if I wake up with a handprint, I'm like instantaneously like, oh, okay, like
Mm,
we need to have a sit down and a talk and a conversation with myself and with my team and with my guides, like what's going on? Why is this happening?
yeah.
Um, because it's not something that even the bruises on itself, that's something I wanna create from my physical vessel on
Mhm.
a daily frequent basis. Um, which is, everyone's different. For me, I don't particularly wanna be walking around telling people
Like
like,
you
"Oh, I just"
pushed yourself
you
back
know?
into the body because apparently you just wanted to have fun.
I mean, yeah, there is one particular story which I will share. I was, at a, like, retreat, and I was a helper at this retreat, and, um, there was this talk by one of the teachers, and it was a really great talk, and I was, like, so invested into this talk, I really wanted to hear this talk, and I kept getting pulled out to go do work on a higher plane around people's contracts and clearing stuff up for different people that were in the room listening to what was going on with the talk, and the human experience me, not my higher self sort of wanted to do that work. Me, I wanted to be in the room doing the human thing of listening to the talk. And so I kept pulling myself back into the body. And so I'd be like, I'm out. And then I'd be like, no. And I'd come back in and I'd be like, I'm staying. Like and then they'd get taken out again. Like, no, you need to do this. And every time that I kind of re-entered the body, I was laying on my side, it felt like my leg was flying into the air. Like, literally, like, every time I was like, "Whee!" Like, and my leg would, like, literally do, like, a random kick into the air. And I'm like, "Oh my god, this is so embarrassing." Like, I'm just randomly kicking my leg into the air. Like, it physically felt like that's what was happening when I was coming into the body. Because I was at that point, I was doing it wrong because I was trying to force myself back into the body. Um, and my legs kicking into the air, and I'm like, at the end of the talk, I turned around to a guy I knew behind me, and I'm like, "Hey, like, is my leg kicking into the air randomly, like during the talk? Like, you can let me know. Like, I know this is weird, but you can let me know, like, because in my mind, it's 100% happened." And he, like, looks at me like I am an alien, like, "What the fuck are you on about?" And he's like, no, like your leg is not kicking into the air. And I'm like, look, it's okay. It's okay. You can
I
tell
just need the
me,
truth here, bro. Like, come on, what the fuck?
like, you can tell me the truth. Like, yeah, just tell me, like, my leg was kicking into the air, right? Yeah, like, you can 100%. And he's like, no, no. He's like, Jess, your leg was not kicking into the air. Like, you need to know it was not happening.
Mm,
And I was like, Okay, like, thanks, that like, it's still in my mind. I'm like, no, like, this can't be this can't be the real. This can't be an experience that I'm having. So I went to the teacher who I trusted deeply, and I was like, "Hey, like, really love the talk, really wanted to be there. Sorry about leaving." And he's like, "No, no, 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 no." Like, he's like, "Thanks so much for helping with all the contracts and the clearing." I'm like, like, yeah, no problems, thanks. But like, I really wanted to be in the talk. He's like, "No, you were doing the work that you needed to do." Um, and I'm like, appreciate it. But actually, the reason I came to talk to you um, was because my leg was flying up into the air, and again, he gives me, like, this look like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And I'm like, "My leg, like, I was coming in and out of the body, and it was flying into the air." And he's like, "Jess, I hate to break it to you, but your leg was 100% not flying into the air. It was staying completely still. You were just coming in and out of the body. It must have probably felt like your leg was flying
mm-hmm.
into the air." And I'm like, "Oh,
Sad
okay, yeah,
face.
I could trust this." But like in my mind, my like limbs were like flying around like for me
Yeah.
entering the body. But in fact, it was actually just my spirit kind of entering the body and my leg kind of like kicking out um astrally, which was hilarious because I don't know how that guy he must have thought I was absolutely fucking wacky. Like
This chick
'cause
right
I was
here.
adamant. I was adamant. I was like, "My leg is doing its own thing, and I'm sorry, like, but I need to know, like, how bad did it look?"
Mm-hmm. Can you please explain to me the awkward, visible changes that happen? No? Okay, fine.
Yeah, but this is around the point where I was starting to gain control of, like, when I do things and what I do. Still had didn't have full control, but I was starting to get that kind of control over it and knew what was going on and why I was doing it. Um Compared to, like, when I didn't know what was going on and why I was doing it, totally blind to it.
Yeah.
I had no control, terrifying, especially, like, everyday life of, like, operating vehicles and these types of things, not something you really want to be
Mm.
experiencing. And I guess that's the thing is, like, with astral projection, you do have to be careful about what you're opening because you don't wanna open that gateway where you start astral projecting out of nowhere.
Okay. I have actually a story that I thought would be a great, thing on top. Um, which is the story of how you and I met, kinda. I mean, it's the most prominent one. Um, So, and I'm gonna share this story not just for the point of like talking about how crazy shit can like get, or what that may introduce, um, but I also want to share this just to like show and share that either getting into it, getting initiated into it, or just messing about with it has like a significant physical effect on you that
Mm.
if done wrong or without proper respect, regardless of how aware you are about it or not, your intention matters a lot. Can do really fucking severe damage for months. I mean, I honestly, after like us meeting up, was excited that there's like a whole thing of people tripping out to music and seeing shit sober, stone cold sober, but at the same time it was like, oh, you can do so much for a person or with people with this level of awareness. Yet again, it's not easy to maneuver or control, so best to not overdo it, although it's exciting. So me and Jess jumped on on Discord. We didn't really know each other that well for a chat for a bit. The server filled up with people. There were like maybe about 8 or 9 of us, and another guy put on this mix where it was a pretty trippy electronic whatever instrumental mix that was legit made to just be a really how would you describe that music? Like,
I don't know, it was the most eclectic like, it went to,
yeah.
like, different parts of the world. It was, like, in India, then in France, and, like, it was, like, Spanish and,
Then cyber
like
street vibes from America and like 30
yeah.
77 or some crap. Then back
And
to
this was
like a
all just
siesta. Nix.
one kind of, like, continual song that just kind of, like, changed the vibe every so often.
Yeah, it basically morphed and whatever. There's a lot of like volume and change and detail to that entire hour and a half, just over hour and a half. The whole entire like art of it is just moving, which we weren't looking at, but moving symbols and whatever, like a psychedelic image that constantly is changing to a bunch of different things, which I would imagine is basically DMT trip. Not done yet, it yet, don't want to, but 8 people along with us started giggling, having difficulty with speech, expressing themselves, keeping attention or focus. In general, the whole vibe of the whole entire like channel was very wishy-washy, like everyone was there but not really there. Sorry?
What are you guys all people were coming in and being
Oh.
like, "What do you guys all want? Like, what the fuck?" And we're like,
Who's on drugs
"Hey!"
here? And it's like just one guy raises his hand. Like I just came back from work and I just did a bong shot. He was the only one that passed out eventually, but
Mm.
everyone else was stone cold sober. Who's in the middle of the night? Who just woke up? Didn't fucking matter. Different ages and nationalities and everything, and everyone is tripping out along to the music at the same type of vibe or like legit kind of here and there. And then at one point there was like a ruckus of people getting confused, like how the fuck can we not communicate? There's 3 different topics that just popped up and everyone looks like they're lost in their minds but also legit on the same fucking drug. What the fuck is happening? This is weird. Me and another guy went away for a break quickly, and I come back and I'm
At the
like,
same time.
and the same time, he went to the kitchen, I went to the bathroom. I come back and I'm like, motherfucker, you're not gonna believe me. I can't even believe this. I've stopped like doing drugs and whatever for a year now, and I saw colors in my bathroom. I saw colors. They were moving and shifting and shaping, and then it stopped, and then it started again because I got confused. It's real, and it was real. I started walking through the hallway. It also started getting like weird fucking patterns, just faintly. I wouldn't be surprised if my hand started tracing, and Jessica's like, that's really interesting. That's kind of funny. Another dude comes back and he's like, yo, dudes, you won't believe me, but I went to grab a sandwich and I also started seeing fucking colors in the hallway I was walking past, and I'm like, oh, cool. So everyone's legit losing their minds. What the hell? This is my first spiritual server on Discord. What is this?
Me
Everyone.
I'm just laughing. I'm like, "That's great."
Yeah, for Jessica, it was just another Tuesday. For me personally, it was the first time event that I was
Everyone else is
wishing.
freaking out.
Everyone else is freaking out. I'm fucking excited. I'm vibing with her primarily. She and her were like, she and me were like leading the whole thing primarily, which I was like very intrigued by. I'm like, I hope we can turn this on again in the future. I really want to do this again. I will quit drugs if this keeps happening. And then a year from that, we started doing different like practices and
Mm.
just like travels within the astral with a whole group of people. And since then, for me, it's been a realization that it keeps happening and has kept happening since I was young. Apparently, I dipped out of my body every single night until I was like about 6, 7, or 8 or something like that, because I would do the usual thing of zooming out of your room until you can't even differentiate whatever's in the room because it's that tiny and small, and you keep doing that until you're basically out. A lot of kids I think do that, and now I'm just kind of having this thing where there's a constant other reality that I keep like checking up on or going to other people to have a conversation with or even creating certain like things and projects and this, that, and the other with. And there is a significant effect, and I personally have always wanted it, which was the whole big thing of like, unveiling reality and what else is there to this dimension. I literally was wishing for it like a few months before I met Jessica, and I'm really glad that I went through all of the stuff and experiences I went through beforehand, because that made me practice the intent of not wanting to harm people, not wanting to be disrespectful or like willy nilly childish about it, because I, at that point, got proven to me how much it changes. Because it can change people's moods, it can shift their
Mm.
fucking lives. We've literally did a timeline jump with a party in the astral when I decided to get drunk on a Discord server once. Everyone woke up in a different timeline. I was
Right.
surprised that a lot of people got sucked into that because I didn't want to suck people into that. Um, Most of the time, it's good experiences, good things like people feel better, uplifted, etc. But there's the other side to it, which I kind of got initiated through, which is attachments, negative entities, had tracing you or like trying to enter your dreams or legit infection or wounds from the astral that then affect you significantly. You can get like physically sick. um Panic attacks, anxiety, unstable mental health, to the point where if it stacks up or continues on for long enough, you start creating a whole new experience or like baseline of your life and your routine and who you are and how you are, to the point where you're different in just like half a year, a completely fucked up different person. And there can be many different reasons for that. There's so much stuff. Yeah.
And I mean, it's interesting because obviously at that point, like when you were going through that, I guess the first experience that you kind of remember at that point in time, um, that was fairly common and normal for me to like. I mean, it was still a different experience than some of the things that I was used to, but that's one of the things that doesn't get spoken about. It's not always the same experience, and you can't necessarily program it or plan it to be the same thing. Um, it will be different. You're going to see different things. Especially if you're doing it with other people.
Oh yeah, it's completely different depending on the people. Like for example, there was one member who I hung out with a lot, and I always saw things crystal clear within the astral, pitch perfect by detail to detail, and with most people I don't. It
Mm.
also depends, like you're gonna feel or hear things or see things more depending on who you're like experiencing it with, or it's gonna be a specific theme and topic.
And that's it. Like, and for me, by that point, I had started to, I guess, there's been a few times in my life where um I guess I unconsciously have become, I guess, the initiate teacher. It's not something I've sought out. It's not something I do. It's not something that like I offer. It's just kind of happened. There was one time that I did kind of offer it. And that was I mentioned this time, and I'll actually tell this story right now, which was I was with a bunch of friends, and they're like, I really wish I could astral project. And I'm like, you know what? Like, let's see if we can do this experience, because by this point, I had started to realize there was a particular energy attached to astral projection. And I could pick up this frequency when people were in this frequency.
Mm,
Um, and I'm like, let's see if we can get you to a point where you get into that energy. Let's see if we can get there. And so there was myself and these two other friends of mine, and we were in a hotel room, and I'm like, okay, right, you're gonna want to lay down because like this energy that I'm talking about is gonna knock you the fuck out. You're not gonna you'll be aware to some degree of what's going on, but not fully. Like, and you may or may not remember anything. Depends on the person.
mm,
Um, so but let's see. And so I've done some things around this, and they fell into the energy. And they were totally gone. Like, I could have banged cymbals, like, played loud music, they were out completely. I kinda went in and, had some fun, did some stuff, and I popped back out. And I'm like, "Okay, cool. I'm done. I'm out. I'm back in the body. I don't wanna go back." And they're still in, and I'm like, it's getting on in time, and I'm like, "Shit," like, they need to they need to come back because there is a time limit on how long you can be away, depending on how much you've left the body.
Mhm.
And I'm like, "You guys need to come back." And I'm like talking to their like higher selves that I'm like, "Guys, come back. Like, you need to come back." Like, "Come back now." And I'm hearing them like, "In a minute," like, like, "In a minute, mom," type responses. And I'm like, "No, you need to come back. We got stuff to do also in the real world. Like, it's fun. We can go back there another time, but you need to come back and experience the real world. Like, this is the experience that we're in, not up there. Here is the experience that we got fun stuff to do. Let's have the experience of this world." Right? We can live there another day. Um, and I was at the point where I was almost actually about to like go back in and just like drag them back with me and be like, "Come back." And I was like, I don't know how this is gonna go because I've never had to do that. But I was kind of, I guess, the person that got everyone into this state. Um, and I'm just like, "You better get your asses here in the next, like, 5 minutes, or I'm coming to get you, and you are going to regret me coming to get you." And, like, within the 5 minutes, both of them woke up
Mhm.
within, like, a minute of each other, and I'm like, "Thank fuck," because like,
Yeah.
in my mind, I'm like, "I don't know what the fuck to do." Like,
Mhm.
I'm not experienced enough at this point, at this aspect, in order to do that.
Yeah.
Um And we spoke about the experience. Everyone had the same experience. Everyone remembered pretty much the same thing. One of them didn't really remember too much, but me and one of the other girls literally, like, I'd say something and she'd say the next sentence of like what happened.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's the really cool part about it. Like when you're doing it by yourself. Also, if you started doing it by yourself, like it's if you like maybe it's real, maybe it's not. Then you do it with other people, and it's like we're basically finishing each other's sentences and describing what happened. What the fuck?
yeah, and both of these, by the way, both of these girls had never astral projected before. I know one of them has since astral projected, and I'm pretty
Mm.
sure the other one has as well. Like she had a different. It's funny, she actually had not astral projection. She had a different type of astral projection that she was doing, but she hadn't had this form of it.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was a whole new world, and that opened doors for her as well. Um, so it isn't like once that door's kind of open, it's open.
Mhm.
And that was a lesson that I learned, that it's like, oh, okay, like, you know,
You can't just give
be
them one-off trip and that's it.
It's not like a, "Here's your plane ticket, you're going to the astral and that's it, you're done."
Yeah, this is a
Um,
one-time thing.
so these days I don't tend to, like, um, put the intention into, like, I mean, there may be a point where someone, like I'm like, "Okay, yeah, no, I'm fine to do this for you." But if it happens naturally, it's like, "Okay, cool," but I know
Mhm.
what's going on.
Yeah.
I also tend to, as well, not take the people to where I took those girls either. I take them to, like, if I'm gonna do it, I take them to one of the lower aspects.
You took them
'Cause
really
they
high up.
Yeah, they were fully out.
Okay, that's cool.
But you gotta remember, like, this was at a point that's where I was going frequently
I mean,
as well.
I get it. It's like you probably didn't really have an awareness of like what's the difference between where you go and normally where people should fucking go for their first time.
And I will say I wanted to go higher, but they're like, "You can't go there." And I'm like, "Oh, maybe next time."
Maybe that next time. It's just a casual Tuesday. I don't know what you're talking about.
I was like, "Ah, this place is fun. This is okay. Like, we can stay here. Like, this is pretty fun here. But I wanted to take you up there. Like, it was gonna be real fun."
Oh, jeez. I mean,
And like the chick that was also finished for sentences was like, "Yeah, you tried to take us somewhere, and we like were not allowed there, but you were."
well,
And I
that's
was like, "Yeah, I remember that."
it's good that they didn't go. That wouldn't have been a good idea. I would,
They
yeah,
they
don't think.
didn't have the like if we're talking about it as like a office place, they
Credentials.
didn't have the key card,
Yeah, they
you
didn't have the
know,
key card.
to access it, so there was no way. Like, I mean, I'm sure I think from memory, it's been a while ago, I possibly tried to like, "It's okay, you can use my key card, like, I'll swipe you through," and they're like, "No."
Hold the fuck
Sorry.
up. Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
but it was a fun time.
not
Not gonna lie.
surprised. Have you done like many initiations after that?
Most of the I will say most of the initiations that I've done with people is literally talking through to them what's going on for them in that moment in time.
Yeah.
Not necessarily initiating people into it. It's more like, okay, this is what's happening. This is what you need to know. This is the safety. This is, you know, things that you need to know.
Yeah.
Or if they've had the experience, same thing. Talking them through, okay, this is how to stay safe. Um,
I like the point that
that's probably been
I
of the
did
experience.
I didn't need to like think about that or worry about that. Like you're talking about like the proper respectful way of like getting into it and taking like the whole teacher role and whatever. How I did it. Yo girl, you need to get some magic up in your life. I'll show you all of the fun greatest things. Okay, do you want to do this? Okay, let's do this. We're going to home planet of yours. But shit happens. I'm like, "Oh, Jesus Christ, that probably shouldn't have. I mean, it happened. It's fine. She's fine. Everything else is fine. But at the same time, I'm not ever doing this ever again because I wanted a fun one and we got into some real deep shit from the get go. What if she wasn't meant for this?" And then I opened that door up for her. And I was also doing still the testing thing of like, I wonder if you like bring a person in, like, what's the whole like range for where it's real and not? Like I was
Mhm.
mentioning things that were there and she would like click onto that, but when I would mention stuff that I would be like, that's not there, I wonder if she's gonna say like, what the fuck are you talking about? Which she did. I was like, okay, so experiment one done. Check. This is real for her. It's very real as well. I can't bullshit this. I couldn't bullshit this if I fucking tried, and I am legit never doing this ever fucking again. I also went to a
Mhm.
place where I was a guide, but also the surrounding culture, besides everything to do with the planet, did not like me at all. Not a single thing about me. So yeah, take if you're doing it, fine. Don't get other people to do it, basically, is the rule of thumb here. If you're called to do
Yeah.
it, you're gonna have to go through the process and initiation, whatever of it. But the more you do it yourself, you realize that you kind of don't want to push it onto other people. I feel like it's one of those things where it's just better left alone. Like, don't push people into spirituality, drugs, or astral projection. Those are my three rules. Um, because if you want to provide a thing that you already are having fun with, right? And you're just like expecting them to have the same experience or just, first impression, then they go off the fucking rails and you can't do
Mm.
crap about it. Half of it, yeah, not your responsibility. Other half is your responsibility. You don't want to deal with that. It's not gonna be fun or cool because
Well,
significant
that's
damage can
the thing.
happen. Like, what if those people
On a
didn't come back, for
on
example?
a on a on a comic level, and that was at legitimately my thought. What the fuck if that one of these people don't come back? Like,
Hmm.
how do I deal with this? I was in a foreign country. I'm in a foreign country, right? Um, like like, if one of them pass away, like, how does that work? Like, what am I gonna do? Like, obviously, they're not gonna know what's happened, but this country, I will say, was very spiritual. Not that I think they would have picked up on anything, but I'm like, also, I don't want them to not come back. Like,
Mhm.
that's gonna ruin my holiday. Like, all these other things. How do I, like, make this not happen? I had those thoughts, and I was like, also, how does this karmically affect me if this happens?
Yeah.
Um, what's the karma if they come back and, like, shit's gone wrong? Like, I actually weirdly, that experience of me going like, "It'll be fun, let's do it," taught me a lot.
Yeah.
Taught taught me a lot about what I was, willing to do with people in that regard, because having, like, 2 friends totally out to it, like, and being told they couldn't go to certain places, which I didn't realize was a thing. Again, because when you go to the places you go, some places other people will be allowed, like, there are places that I'm probably not allowed that other people are allowed,
Yeah, exactly.
um,
Yeah.
and vice versa. But you don't know that until you try to take someone like, "Oh, come on, we're gonna go to this my favorite bar in the astral plane." Wait, hang on, you're not allowed in the bar? Like, what?
Yeah.
I thought you were 18 plus. Like, everyone's 18 plus, right? You can come through to the bar. So that kind of taught me, and that's when I mean, I've still had other experiences where I've kind of initiated people, but it's been on a much lower level. It's not I'm not trying to like, let's go to the top, guys.
Yeah. I mean, makes sense. You need to obviously take care and respect with it.
Yeah. And I mean, up until that point as well, it actually taught me also as well about my own personal experience, which was that I was going somewhere that not necessarily everyone was allowed.
Mm. I'll take this opportunity to like ask, do you think that this is gonna be more of a two-parter? Because we're already at like just over 1 hour, but I feel like there's like a whole nother section
I
that we're
feel like
not,
there is a whole other
because
section.
my whole brain just shut down. I don't have anything else to add, and it feels like we can cut this off and start a whole nother one right away and get
Mhm.
into whatever's like in part two. Does that make sense?
I think this is a two-parter. I always thought this was a two-parter,
Yeah.
to be fair. Yeah, I think with on that note, I guess really the main thing with this is don't rush into it,
Don't get into it
right?
if you
Don't
don't need to. That's my
Yeah.
main warning. Do not get into it if you don't need to.
It will happen if it needs to happen. And that's probably actually gonna be in part 2 because that's probably
Yeah.
gonna be, some of the, I guess, stuff on how I kind of got into it and also got control of some of it as well.
Yeah.
Because that's a whole journey, um, which was not easy, for me to do. I'd love to say that I had, like, some, like, yogi, guru teacher telling me what to do. No. I tried Google searching, I tried figuring out, like, is there anyone that I can, like, about this? I could not find anyone that seemed to fit the mold of what I was looking for in order to get help from. So I had to kind of figure this out on my own,
Yeah.
which was terrifying because there was a lot of trial and error and, like, am I gonna fuck shit up too much?
I guess I'm gonna more talk on the personal experience of like wanting this whole dimension and then learning some other details about it and having second thoughts and not being able to say no dip. Or just like the personal side of it or experience of it where you can be like a psychonaut and then regret the decision really quickly. I'm gonna probably delve into a lot more of my personal stories because I have like a lot of them and they're the most fresh. out of us too. And I've
Yeah.
wanted to like speak a bunch about it. So we're probably gonna delve into all of the other necessary and fun details. This was basically just a bit of a warm up.
Mhm.
Because you have like 10 times the amount of what you said. I think this is just going to be a reoccurring topic of ours.
Yeah, I mean, it's to put it, like, I guess, plainly, there are times within my life that the astral world and the real world, the lines blur, like, and I'm just, like, kind of walking around in it.
Oh, girl, samesies! How cool!
And it's like there have definitely been times where it's, like, kinda especially when it's, like, something new. These days, not so much, but, like, when it was very new, terrifying.
My
Am
whole
I
life
going
was a
crazy?
lie! What
Do
the
I need to, like
fuck?
do I need to get locked up? Like, is this legit? Am I losing my mind? Is this real?
Do I need pills? Were they right
Yeah.
about the pills? Am I wrong?
And then realizing that there's nothing to worry about, you're not crazy and
It's okay.
everything's fine.
It's
I
fine.
mean, you still need to be careful, but everything's fine.
This is where the whole be human thing and focus on humanity more so than anything else comes into play and is really fucking important. Really
100%.
important.
And I think that for me has been the massive gift of astral projection is a lot of people want to do it to leave here. What it's actually taught me is this experience in the human body is so much more important than anything that I'm experiencing out there.
I actually have a bit of a reference for anyone that has done drugs and had a very intense evening, whatever time on them, and then after that we're like, I want life to just be normal. That's basically what astral projection can be like. If you're gonna be disrespectful with it, even if you are respectful with it, sometimes on your journey you're gonna be shot out on a highway and then just want everything to stop. But usually you're in the point where you're learning how to include it and weave it into your experience on a practical human level where you're still functioning and you're okay and you appreciate your life more rather than get away from it or find shortcuts or bad blind eyes or whatever make it into a fairy tale or land for yourself, because that's not the point of it. The point of it is to experience more of yourself at one point where you're digging through things and see multiple perspectives and have more of a bit of a chance in how you like approach things or go through them. Um, Also makes it easier for higher level or deeper aspects of your like shadow work to be panned out properly, like whatever shit's accumulated from a different like a specific wound for lifetimes. Astral projection can really help you sort that out for yourself, but it's not for everyone, and there are like legit precautions you have to take for your own well-being as well as just the stability of your fucking life. So, as fun as this probably sounds or has been listening to us, do take everything with a bit of, grain of salt. Also, precaution, 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 precaution. Um, Besides that,
Yeah.
I mm,
Well, I guess we're gonna see you in the next
next one,
episode,
yeah, exactly.
which will be coming out very not straight away.
Not straight away, no. We're gonna use this opportunity to backlog. Finally, we can backlog maybe a little bit, but yeah. I mean, we'll
All
see
right,
how it goes.
see how it goes. All right, guys,
Are you
we'll
doing the
see you in the
wave? Well,
I
okay,
am.
fine.
It's time to start
Living.
living.
Stop dreaming. Don't astral project
Guys.
out of your life. Bye.